I joked that my husband was a wimp. He didn't laugh. He just stood up, walked out, and when he came back, he wasn't the same man. Now, I'm the one who's scared of what happens next. I'm Lauren, 32 years old, and this happened just a few months ago. I'm married to Greg. He's 34. We've got 2 kids, Alex who's 5 and Mia who's 3. Life isn't exactly perfect, but we're doing fine, right? At least I thought we were. I mean, I've got my hands full with the kids, the house, and managing all the chaos. But Greg? He just kind of goes with the flow. He's the kind of guy who thinks everything's fine until it's not. This all started with one of those lazy Saturday nights. The kids were in bed, and we were on the couch watching TV, nothing special. I think we were flipping through channels when a commercial came on. The guy in it was all buff and doing these over-the-top macho things. I couldn't help myself. I turned to Greg and joked, "I bet you could never pull that off. You're a total wimp compared to him." I thought it was harmless, you know, just a silly comment, but he froze. He looked at me, and it wasn't the usual playful banter we had. There was something in his eyes. I didn't know it then, but it was the start of something bigger. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood, but Greg didn't laugh. Instead, he just sat there looking at the TV like it was the most interesting thing he'd ever seen. I wasn't even sure if he heard me at first, but then he turned to me and said, "What did you just say?" I laughed again, a little nervous now. "Come on, Greg, it's just a joke, don't take it so seriously." But the way he was staring at me made my stomach twist. He wasn't getting it, and to be honest, I couldn't understand why. "It was just a joke," I said. "I'm not a wimp," he said quietly, but there was something about his voice. It was almost like a challenge. It made me uncomfortable, but I didn't know why. I shrugged it off. "Oh come on, relax, it's not like I meant it." I waved it off, trying to move on. It was just a little fun, you know, but he didn't let it go. He just kept looking at me, his jaw clenched, and I could feel the tension building. Suddenly he stood up, startling me. He walked over to the door, grabbed his jacket, and before I could even ask what he was doing, he snapped, "I'm going for a run." I blinked. A run at night? He didn't say anything else, he just left. And I sat there frozen trying to figure out what had just happened. Was it really that big of a deal? I had to admit it was kind of funny to see him get so worked up over something so small. But then I started to feel a little guilty. Was I too harsh? I tried texting him but he didn't respond. I told myself he just needed space, you know. But as the minutes stretched on, I started to feel like an idiot. He'd never reacted like this before. We've had our disagreements, sure, but he's never gotten so upset over something like this. Eventually, I gave up on the texting and went to bed. The kids would be up early and I knew I needed to be ready for the chaos of the morning. But I couldn't stop thinking about Greg. What was going on? Why was he so upset? I convinced myself it was probably nothing. Maybe he was just stressed. The next morning he came back home after his run but didn't say much. He was quieter than usual, almost like he was distant. He didn't even kiss me when he walked in and that felt strange. It wasn't like him. But I didn't say anything. Instead, I just made coffee and went about my morning routine. I figured it would blow over, right? I mean, who could stay mad over a dumb joke like that? But the thing is, it didn't blow over. It was like the tension between us was building, just waiting for the next thing to set it off. And I'll be honest, at the time I didn't care. I didn't see why I should apologize. After all, I hadn't done anything wrong. It was just a joke. I went on with my day running errands, taking care of the kids, but Greg stayed in his office, hardly coming out. He didn't seem interested in talking when I did see him. He'd give me short answers and his body language was totally different. It was like he was a stranger. And then around dinner time, it all exploded. He snapped. He told me I had no respect for him, that I always belittled him with little comments, that I'd never taken him seriously. He said I'd made him feel like a joke, and honestly I was blindsided. I had no idea what he was talking about. I told him he was overreacting, but the more he talked, the more I realized he was actually upset. I felt this pit in my stomach, but at the same time, I still didn't think I'd done anything wrong. Sure, maybe it was a little mean. But who didn't joke around like that in a marriage? We always teased each other. Why was this different? But Greg didn't see it that way. He said I didn't respect him and that I didn't know how to fix it. I tried to tell him I didn't mean anything by it, but that didn't work. I still don't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, what's a little joke, right? But the more he went on, the more I started to see how serious this was to him, and deep down, I was starting to regret the way I'd handled it, but I wasn't ready to admit that, not yet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing as Greg stood there, his face red with frustration. It hit me. He was done. He wasn't just upset anymore, he was fed up. He'd had enough, and I didn't know how to handle it. "You think this is all just some joke, don't you?" he said, his voice getting sharper, "but it's not. I'm done being the punchline of your little jokes. I can't keep living like this." I opened my mouth to defend myself, to brush it off like I'd always done, but he didn't let me. He just kept going. "Every time we argue it's the same thing. You don't take me seriously, you make fun of me, you don't respect me." His words were hitting me like a ton of bricks, but I wasn't ready to admit that I'd messed up, not yet, not in front of him. "You think I'm just going to keep putting up with your neglect?" He threw his hands up in frustration. "I work hard. I try to keep this family going, and all you do is undermine me. You make me feel worthless, you make me feel like I'm just a joke. Well, guess what? I'm not going to keep doing this." I was standing there completely stunned. I didn't know what to say, and that feeling of guilt, that pit in my stomach, started growing, but I wasn't going to apologize, not yet. It was too soon. My instinct was to defend myself, to tell him I didn't mean it like that, but I was paralyzed. I didn't want to show weakness. I didn't want to be the one to admit I'd been wrong, and then he dropped the bomb. I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I need respect. I need you to show me that you actually care about me, and not just use me as a punch bag. You've got two choices: either you change, really change, or I'm out. I'm not going to stay in a relationship where I'm just your punching bag. My heart dropped. I felt like the room was spinning. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't think it was this bad. Sure, Greg had been distant, but I didn't think it was that serious. I thought it was just a little tension. A small bump in the road. I never imagined he would give me an ultimatum. He never had before. You're serious? I whispered, barely able to believe it. He nodded, his face cold, almost like I didn't matter anymore. You think I don't care about this family, but I do more than you realize. But I can't keep feeling like this. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when I'm the butt of your jokes. When I'm the one who gets dragged through the mud. You need to show me you care, or I'm out. I felt like I was drowning. The thought of losing him, of being alone with the kids, having to deal with everything by myself, terrified me. I didn't even know how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him how unreasonable he was being, but I knew deep down I couldn't. The truth was, I hadn't been fair to him, not really. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to face that part of myself. You're not going anywhere, I muttered, trying to hold on to something, anything that felt like control. But even as I said it, I knew I was lying to myself. He wasn't going to stay if things didn't change. Greg stood there for a long time, just looking at me, like he was waiting for something, maybe an apology, maybe an explanation, but I couldn't give him either, not yet. You think this is just going to blow over, huh? He said quietly, the hurt in his voice cutting deeper than I expected. You think I'm just going to forget this and pretend it never happened? I've had enough of being ignored, Lauren. I've had enough of being made to feel like I'm not worth the effort. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know what to do. I felt like the ground was slipping beneath me. The idea of Greg walking away, of me losing him and everything we built, hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to cry, but I held it in. I wasn't going to beg, not yet. He sighed, shaking his head, before he turned around and walked out of the room. I stood there, frozen, as the sound of the door slamming echoed through the house, and just like that, everything had changed. I wanted to call him back, to say something, anything, but I didn't. I didn't know what to say. The kids were still asleep, but the silence in the house was deafening. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I sat down on the couch, trying to wrap my mind around what Greg had said. I didn't get it. How could a joke, just one stupid, offhanded joke, turn into something like this? I hadn't even realized the depth of what I was doing to him. I thought it was funny, but now I was starting to see that maybe I had crossed a line, but I wasn't ready to admit it. I just sat there, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know where to even start. I guess that's what it felt like to finally realize that you might lose something you care about, but not fully understand why, until it's almost too late. I had no idea how to make it right, but something inside me told me that if I didn't figure it out soon, I really would lose Greg, and I wasn't ready for that, not yet. I didn't know what to do. The house felt like a prison. I kept replaying everything Greg had said, his words echoing in my head. The silence between us felt like a chasm, one I wasn't sure I could cross anymore. But I wasn't ready to admit that yet. I wasn't ready to face the reality Greg might really be gone. I spent hours pacing around the house, trying to think of what to do, what to say. Should I go to him, apologize? But I knew deep down that an apology wouldn't fix this. It wasn't just one joke, it was years of ignoring him, of dismissing his feelings, of taking him for granted, and I didn't know how to undo all of that. Around midnight, I heard the front door open. I froze. It was Greg. He walked in quietly, his face hard, like he wasn't sure what to say to me either. I felt a pang of regret hit me like a wave, but I couldn't find the words. He stood there for a moment, just staring at me. I'm not doing this anymore, Lauren. I can't be with someone who doesn't see me, who doesn't appreciate me. It's not just about the joke anymore, it's about everything. His voice was calm, but the hurt was so clear in his eyes. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I couldn't fix this, not in one night, not in one moment. I think you need to think about what you want, he continued. Because if you want me, if you really want us to work, you're going to have to show me that you care, that you respect me, that you're willing to make the effort to change. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that I'd change, that I'd do anything, but I didn't say that. Instead, I just nodded. He had already made up his mind. He had already seen through me, through all my excuses. Greg turned and walked out the door again, this time with no hesitation, and I knew in that moment that he wasn't coming back. I stayed up for hours after that, staring at the empty house, wondering where everything had gone wrong. I couldn't change the past, but I could already feel the weight of my mistakes catching up to me. By the time morning came, I knew he was gone for good. His clothes were gone, his things were packed, and the silence that filled the house was suffocating. I hadn't even been able to say goodbye. I thought I was in control of everything, of my life, of my marriage, but the truth was, I had been playing a game I didn't even understand. I had pushed Greg too far, and now he was gone, and for the first time I felt truly alone. It wasn't until later, when I was standing in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, that I realized the truth. I wasn't the victim in this story. I wasn't the one who had been wronged. I was the one who had taken someone for granted. I was the one who had ignored their pain, until it was too late. I had made a joke about the one man who had always been there for me, the one person who loved me through everything. And now that love was gone. Maybe I'd never be able to fix it, maybe it was too late for me. But I would never forget the day Greg walked out the door and left me to face the consequences of my actions, and that's when it hit me. The hardest lesson I'd ever learn: respect is everything. Without it, you have nothing. As the days went on, I saw Greg move on. I heard rumors, saw pictures of him smiling, looking happier than I had seen him in years. I wanted to reach out, to tell him I was sorry, but I knew it was too late. The damage was done, and this time, there was no coming back. I had lost him, and that, in the end, was the hardest part to accept.